My name is Robert Keefer, and I live right here in Westminster. Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay, we're here with Mr. Robert Keefer, who's from Westminster. And Mr. Keefer, please tell us how long you've lived in Carroll County.
I've lived here all my life. I'm a lifetime resident of Westminster, Carroll County. I was born in New Windsor, RD1, but I've lived in Westminster now, I guess, for, I'd say at least, let's see, I left home when I was 15, so maybe 60 years, something like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Now, tell me a little bit about what it was like growing up in New Windsor. What kind of things did you do?
Well, I was a farm boy. I was one of 10 children. It was 5 boys, 5 girls. We lived on a farm, and we had no running water or no electricity when I was there. So you can see it was many years ago. And then I left when I was 15 to take and go work for somebody on a farm. At that time, I was making something like $1 a day and room, board, and clothes wash, okay? I never finished high school. I took and finished that later years and then went on in the military. But anyhow, I stayed there, and then I took and another farmer offered me some better deal the following year or two, and I went there for $15 a week, and room, board, clothes washed, and I wound up staying there until I got drafted into the military then. So I went in the military and did my time.
Wow. So what kind of things were you doing on the farm?
The farm, well, we did it. We milked a lot of cows. We had probably 80 cows we milked and had young animals, calves. We had hogs. We had to feed and clean the stables, do all that kind of stuff. It was normal farm chores, you know, which was typical, like just about like it is today, only it's more modern today than it was back then. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So was it just you and the family, or were there other guys that were doing that too?
Yeah, the family had boys too. It was about 4 of us all together. It was 3 of them, and of course I was a hired hand, you see, back then. Yes.
Wow. Now, why did you choose to go to work at the other farm instead of staying in New Windsor?
It was more money, and it was a bigger operation, you know. Really, that first job I had when I left as a young boy, it wasn't I was only supposed to be there for 2 weeks, but I wound up staying there for a year. So I went where there was more money and more opportunity.
Oh, that seems so difficult to me. That seems so young to leave.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, you know, that's the way it is when you're young, you know, and you think, you know, you don't have it made at home, you know, your parents, you know, and things, you know how young people were back then. But I was only gone a couple of weeks before I realized I really had it made at home, you know.
So did you ever think about going back, or did you ever?
Well, yes, a lot of times, but then I was too proud not to, you know. I thought I did the right thing. Yeah.
Wow. So tell me some of the changes that you've seen in Westminster and New Windsor.
Oh, my. Let me tell you, back years ago, you know, I remember when they took and put 140 in out here, how that became, you know, back in the 40s and 50s, the bypass around Westminster and all that, and the streets, the fireman's building when it used to be on Main Street, and a lot of the dealers that are out on the highway now were in the city of Westminster on Main Street, you see. The Willys dealership, the Westminster Motor Company, and all of those, they were right here in town, you know.
There was space for them? All those dealerships? Well,
the fireman's building, where the old fireman's building is now, that used to be, it's all upgraded as you can see now. The one I'm talking about on Main Street, the old building, they got businesses in there now. But prior to that, it was just a garage right beside it, the Westminster City Garage, and they had a dealership right there. It was a Chrysler and Plymouth dealership, I think. And then up the street further was the Chevrolet Garage, right across from the Union National Bank, where the hotel is, the old hotel, PNC Bank. That across the street was the Westminster Motor Company. They sold Chevrolets in there years ago.
So did you ever purchase a car there?
Oh, yeah, years ago. The one at the Chevrolet dealership. I bought a car there I think back in 51, something like that. I think I bought a car there. That's how long ago that's been. Yes.
So what are some of your favorite memories of living here?
In Carroll County? Well, I remember back when I was home, and I used to have to walk 1.5 miles to school to meet the bus. The bus, the road that I lived on, Dennings Road, was all dirt road. Buses didn't go in there. We had to walk out to Route 27. And I can remember as a young boy going to school, my dad had a V plow. It was something that was made into a V, and you could stand on it, and he'd take a horse, and he'd take us down to meet the school bus. What he would do, he would break a path for us with this V plow, and then during the winter, snow, and we would walk back him and get down to meet the bus down on 27. In the evening, he would be down there, and then he would take and do the same thing on the way back, and we'd get home that way. That way, us kids, little kids with our school lunchbox and our school bag, wouldn't have to, drag it in the snow. Of course, sometimes the snow was deep enough it'd come up to your knees, Back then, they didn't close schools because of snow. I mean, you went to school, it didn't matter what,
And it seemed like it snowed more then.
Oh, yes, it snowed a lot more then, yes. Now, when they have school, if it's a little bit of skiff of snow, or it's even calling for snow, they don't have snow, they don't have school, but back then they did.
So what kind of things did you take in your lunch?
Oh, Mom made us, we raised everything on the farm, we had beef, pork, chicken, all this stuff, and she'd fix stuff like that if it was left over from a meal or something like that, or she would have peanut butter jelly sandwiches. That was a big thing back then. In fact, today a lot of kids love it. Even I do to this day.
Yeah, I often frequently make that for my daughter.
Yes.
So did you like riding horses, or?
Yeah, well, we didn't ride too much because all our horses was work horses, We had mules and we had some horses too. We had a couple horses, but then we had about 3 mules, I think it was, yes. And we had, I think it was 6 or 8 cows that we had for milk, and we made butter. I can remember as a young boy, my parents was like vegetable farmers, truck farmers, see. We raised strawberries, raspberries, made butter, and all this stuff. This is how they made money in order to buy things, condiments that you couldn't, at this grocery store. Yeah, I can still see me and my twin brother, we'd take the milk and we'd pour it into this separator. And then what we'd do is separate the cream from the milk, and then they would take and chill that, and then we would put it in a big old barrel churn, and then we'd make butter. He'd be on one side, I'd be on the other. We'd be turning this barrel and making this butter, and that thing would be going flop, 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 flop. And then one would take and my twin brother, he would kind of slack off a little, and I'd holler for my mother. I'd say, "Look, he's not turning," and she'd holler at him, and we would take and go ahead and finally we'd get this butter all made. And then I can remember they'd sit around and they'd pat this butter and make pounds out of it. They knew what a pound was. It was a little thing that they made, and with a pound of butter, and we'd bring the excess butter, I think 50, 60 pound of butter a week. We'd bring it to town, and we had different people like yourself or some other family would get a pound or 2 pounds. And then what was left over, we used to take to Newdecker's store on Main Street, which was right below Rouse Street there, on the right, before you get to Court Street. And I can remember Mr. Newdecker would take the butter for groceries, like pepper, salt, some cereals and things like that you couldn't grow on the farm,
Oh, so you trade it. Kind of
we
bartered.
traded it, we bartered. That's how they did that. That's how my parents raised, yes.
Oh, and then the other people you were selling it to.
Right, exactly. Hmm.
How long would it take you to make the butter?
Well, if I could remember, it took a while to take and turn that. In other words, it probably took us maybe an hour to take and turn that as we turned to churn, to make the butter. I would say an hour or so. We sit there and just turn that thing until finally it become butter,
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds delicious, though.
Oh, yeah, but it's had a lot of cholesterol. But we didn't worry about that back then.
So you must have had to pick a lot of strawberries and raspberries.
Oh,
then.
yes. Strawberries, we had approximately 5 different big patches of strawberries. What I used to hate, it was strawberries and raspberries. As we went to school, we come home from school, okay, boys, it's time to go out to the strawberry patch. We go out and pick strawberries. We'd pick, during the season, it was nothing for us on a good year to have 2,000 quarts of strawberries and then 2,000 quarts of raspberries. We'd have to go out and pick those. We'd pick this patch today, and then tomorrow, the next day, we'd go to another patch, and then the next day or so, we'd go to another patch, and then by that time, we'd come back and start all over again. And during the season, and we would accumulate approximately 2,400 quarts of strawberries. And then just as soon as the strawberries were getting over with, the raspberries started coming in. So then we'd go to this patch, pick those old black raspberries, and then we'd pick those. Of course, they'd sell them in town. And then the next day we'd go to another patch, and then about that time we'd have to go back to this first patch and start. But we had 4 or 5 different patches of raspberries also.
So you just did that from the time you got home from school until you went to bed?
Well, during the daylight hours, we'd pick it. I mean, it wasn't a continuous thing. In other words, it wasn't long evenings because we had our schoolwork to do, and we had other chores to do too, around the house. Because that many, of course, when I was little, some of the older ones had already left home. See, because my oldest is 92 right now, and my kid sister is 74. So. The older ones were gone. We were, I guess at the time when I was growing up, there was only probably 6 of us at home. Five of us, 6 of us at home at the most.
And how many brothers and sisters do you have total?
10 brothers and sisters.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm one of 10.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened to the farm after the younger ones left?
Well, in later years, we all left. And then the parents, what happened, my parents stayed there, and then finally, when they passed away, the place was sold, see? Yeah. And it's all been developed now.
Okay.
Yes.
And which developments are that, so we get a sense of where you were?
Well, it's out off of Dennings Road. Dennings and Jordan's Retreat School Road. That's where it is. Okay.
And then after you left the farm, you went to work on other farms.
Yes.
And did you do that through your adulthood?
No, I left there and I went to Glen L. Martin Company in Baltimore, and then from there I got drafted into the military. Yeah.
Which branch of the military were you?
I was in the Army, and then I went in there, and then I come back, and then I went into reserves, and then I took and went on active duty some on and off. In the meantime, I got a job. I worked at Glen L. Martin Company a little bit afterwards but then I got laid off, and I wound up working for the post office here in Westminster. I did 35 years with them. And during that time, I was in the reserves, and I'd go on active duty some. And I had a total of 40 years and 10 months active in reserve in the military. So I'm retired military and retired postal.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So as a postal worker, you probably saw a lot of the county then.
I saw everything. We went from rural route, say Route 7, Box 5, rural Route 7, Box 10, all this. They went to the grid system. I saw that. That was very rewarding,
Well, would you be willing to explain a little bit about the older system of because I'm not
Yes.
familiar with that at all.
Is that right? Well, at the time I went to work at the post office, we had something like 6 or 7 rural routes. They're the ones that goes out in the country. And in the city, we had probably 5 or 6 city routes. That's guys that walked the route and delivered the mail. Now, on the rural, they used to be like Route 1 through 7, and each one of those roads, as he went on his route all around, it was Route 1, box 1, 2, 3, on through until he got, if he had 200 or 300 boxes, Route 1, box 400, if it was 400 boxes he had. Same way with 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 would be the same thing. But in later years, they come out with a grid system where every 50 feet of real estate became a number. Instead, in other words, for example, like on Bachman's Valley Road, it would be number 3465 Bachman's Valley Road, and then the next house would be 3450 something or whatever, whatever the however close they were together,
So that's how we have our addresses now.
Yeah, exactly. That's how it's addressed today,
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's how they broke it down. Every 50 feet was a number, and if it was real close together, now if a farm was a big farm and you had a farm here and half a mile down the road was the next farm, then they compensated for that, the numbers, In other words, it wasn't the next number down the line, like two numbers apart. It might have been many numbers,
Oh, that explains why the numbers don't seem to match up.
Yep.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yes.
So what were the things you enjoyed about working for the post office?
Well, you got to meet a lot of people. I was the window tech, and I got to see a lot of people. I had all the window clerks, and I had College Station and Uniontown. Those two offices. I was responsible for all their income, their revenue. I had to record all that, made sure they had all their products to do the job with and things like that. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And when you weren't working, what kind of things did you like to do for fun in your free time?
Fun, I'm one of those crazy NASCAR fans. I've followed that all my life. I've been following that since I was a young teenager. And I go to a lot of those a year. I do. We run all over the place. Florida to New England, all the way out west.
Now, do you have children?
Yes. I got two children. I got a boy and a girl. My daughter's 45, and my son is 37. She's on staff at Lynchburg College, where she graduated from. She's director of student affairs, and my son, he's now living in Colorado. He was a teacher for a while, but he's out in Colorado. He works in the plumbing industry. He taught for a while, but then he didn't like teaching, so he'd like to go back out west, so that's where he's at right now.
Oh. But you raised both of them here in Carroll County?
Yes, they both went to school in Westminster. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so talk about your experiences as a parent raising your children here.
Well, I really didn't have any major problems with the kids. I was fortunate that way. Of course, kids today, I guess I give them too much. As a parent, you wanted them to have as much as you could rightfully afford. But I sent them to college, and she went to Lynchburg. She graduated from there and went back and got her master's. My son went to West Virginia, and then he wound up out in University of Arizona in Tucson. He graduated from there. So he taught a while, and of course she's always been into the administrative end of it. When she took and came back from California, she taught here in Carroll County for approximately, a couple years, and then she went to work then on college on being on staff at Lynchburg. Of course, she's traveled all around. She was on staff in California, Colorado. That job that she has is pretty much every college has director of student affairs, and you can pretty much, when that job becomes available, they advertise, and she then goes and applied for it. It all depends on what part of the country she wanted to live in, and that's how she did. She was single. She finally got married 2 years ago, at age 43, Bill.
That's nice. So
Yeah.
when they were growing up and they were little, where did you take them for fun here in Carroll County?
Well, in Carroll County, we made sure we'd bring them to like a carnival or something like that. Back then, they had a lot of carnivals, and Westminster had one, and things like that. And we had a lot of church functions that we'd take them to. You know, we made them go to church and do all that stuff. And if they didn't go to church, they didn't do these other things. You know, we were a little strict, I guess, back then, and so it showed. In other words, they turned out to be good kids.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Now, you're a member of the Lions Club.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about how you started participating in that in the club history.
Back years ago, a good friend of mine, he's still living, he's in Florida, Charlie Petrie. He used to be the treasurer or something at Westminster Coca-Cola. When you talked about Westminster Coca-Cola, which was on Baltimore Boulevard, you know where that's at, he was on staff there, Charlie. And him and John Marsh and guys like that. Anyhow, he asked me if I'd like to be a member of the Lions Club. He invited me, so I went, and I liked what I saw, and so I decided to join. So that was 41 years ago, and so I've been a member ever since, an active member. I'm past president of the Lions Club. I've worked. I was the zone chairman, and been on the cabinet as Americanism and Patriotism chairman for the whole 5 counties of Western Maryland, the District 22W, which consists of the 5 counties, Carroll, Frederick, Washington, Allegheny, and Garrett County. I traveled over those counties with promoting Americanism and patriotism for the Lions Club, yes.
Wow, that's a big area.
Big area, yes. And at that time we had, I think it was 50 clubs that we had to attend, yes.
So what do you consider to be the best accomplishments of your club?
Well, a lot of things that we've done. Like we originally started out with some of the big projects we did were putting lights at the football field at Westminster High School, the old Westminster High School down here on well, I guess on Longwell Avenue, I guess you would call it. That was the original Westminster High School. And then some of the big things were the Christmas treat for the kids of the city of Westminster. We always participated in that, as you could see in my scrapbook. At Christmas time, that was always great. And then the thing that really touched most of us were at Christmas time, when we do the Christmas baskets for the needy. We did as many as 65 families. We would give a ham, and we'd give clothes, we'd give all kinds of food. I mean, big boxes of stuff we'd take out to these people that's needy. Everybody in the community knew that this is what we did, so they'd submit a name, somebody that they knew was in need. And a lot of them were these people that worked on farms or tried to make a good living for their kids, you know, and they were struggling. You'd see these little kids come out when you deliver these baskets, and they would, you know, they'd have patched pants and maybe no shoes, and they weren't the cleanest, you know, and you knew they needed it. It made you feel good, you know, when you give them that stuff. And it was really rewarding at Christmas time when we'd go and do that. We'd go to the Coca-Cola plant out here, and they let us dump our stuff in there, and at that time, we would get together on Sunday morning, us guys, all us Lions, and we would have the list of every family that we were going to donate to, and we'd go around and we'd just shop out of these baskets, hams and oranges and apples and clothes and whatever size, we knew what, and we'd get that together, and then we'd assign that to different guys. They would know where to go and what to deliver, and we'd go out and deliver that. And when you'd walk in there and see them little kids and excited as they were, you know, it made you feel, you know, very humble.
Yeah, that'd be a nice way to celebrate the holiday.
Yeah.
Did you want to show your scrapbook?
Well, if you'd like to see it.
I would love to see it.
Okay. It's just, my nephew painted this picture on here. This is the year that I was president here. And it's got a lot of memories in there, you know, if you wanted to see it.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Okay, let's see. Will you be able to see it this way?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see some of the things. These are some of the pictures of the presidents, international presidents. Of course, this is the year I was president and all this. I'll just leaf through here. And this is a delegate when we had our our district convention over in Atlantic City. These are some of the pictures of the delegates that went to the convention. Of course, it was always a dressed-up affair, and we did all of our voting and things like that. This was the international convention in Dallas, Texas. I was a delegate there. It was Hal Fritz. He was a member. He's now deceased. He and I and our wives went to Dallas for that 4 or 5 day convention.
So does everybody do a scrapbook the year that they were president?
Some of them do, some of them don't. I wanted to do one, so I was really glad that I did because it brings back a lot of memory. These are a lot of the international people that we voted for down there for the at the convention. And here's the parade they had in Dallas. It was a little warm that day down there, and of course I got a lot of pictures of everything.
So what happens at the conventions? Like what do you do
what
there?
they do, they change. They have all kinds of vote on different things at the convention for what they should do to better the Lions Club throughout the world. This is the installation night when I was inducted into the Lions Club. That is as the president. All these pictures. There's Mr. Scott Bear, the first. He's the first president of the Westminster Lions Club.
Which one is he?
This one right here, Scott Bear. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, that's nice. Is there anything else that you would like to talk about or share your memories of here in Carroll County?
Well, not really. It's a good place to live. You know, I think it's. Well, I've been around all over, the country, and I was fortunate enough. I got overseas 5 times in my career. I was Korea once during the war. I went back afterwards. I spent a year on Guam, and I got to Germany twice and Italy once. So I've got to say that Carroll County, I think, is one of the nicest places that you'll want to live and raise a family.
I agree.
Yes, yes.
And thank you very much for taking the time to chat with us today.
Okay, my pleasure.